Welcome to the Jim Show with your host, Jim. Today I want to talk about a workshop that I attended. It was with professional coach Nathan Kreger. He's a small business coach. And what he talked about today was the owner versus victim choice. Basically, it's a choice that we make in any kind of situation we're in, where we choose to either be an owner of our destiny, of our choices, or a victim. Play the victim role and complain about circumstances as if they are controlling us, when in fact we get to choose what happens to us in every moment. It's always a choice. Whether you fall into the victim or the owner way of thinking, you have to recognize that it's a thought pattern. It's a habit that will form over time. So the more often you fall into victim type thinking, the more often it'll happen. And the more often you choose to be an owner of your life and the situation, the more often that pattern will play out in your subconscious mind. And what Nathan went through today are different ways that this expresses itself. This concept expresses itself. Different kind of thoughts that will happen, or different ways of thinking. And the first example was, as an owner, you would think, what can I get from this? Whereas a victim, you might think, how can I get through this? So this applies to any kind of situation, right? In any situation, you think, how can I learn from this? How can I benefit if you're an owner? What can I get out of this? No matter how lousy the situation is, what can I get out of it? As a victim, it's just, how can I get through this, whatever it is? So this occurred a lot with me when I was a student at West Point. That entire process was, how can I get through this 4 years in the big picture? You know, that the first summer there was brutal. How can I get through this summer? How can I get through the first year where I'm getting hazed and harassed all the time? How can I get through the next year where there's all these studies? So I was always focused on just, how can I survive? And you can keep thinking that way through your whole life. And you're always just trying to get through this next thing. How can I get through these years when my kids are really young and they're in diapers and they're waking me up at night? You know, how can I get through that? And pretty soon you're an old person and you've just gotten through life and you're waiting to get to the old folks home. And then it's, how can I get through that part of it and die? And, you know, then finally I'm done and life is good. So what you want to focus on is being an owner and always thinking, what can I get out of this, whatever it is. It's a new business venture you're trying and you fail. What did you learn? How are you better? What did you get out of it? Again, in every single situation that you're in, you can always get something out of it. You can learn from everyone and you can learn from every single thing that happens. So next are phrases that you might use when you're thinking about things you need to do. So as an owner, you would say, I want to do this, I intend to do this, I will do this. And as a victim, you might say, I should do this, I ought to do this. Or the one that really came up for me a lot was, I have to do this, I need to do this. And what those phrases, especially I have to and I need to, do is they put the onus on external factors. So, for example, when I would do this a lot with my children, perhaps, I would say, oh, I'm sorry, I need to go watch my kids, right? I don't need to watch them. I choose to watch them. I make a conscious decision to watch them because that's what I want to do, or to spend time with them, right? I shouldn't even be calling it watching my kids. I'm not their babysitter, I'm their dad. So I make a conscious choice to spend time with them, to father them. I don't have to do that. I choose to do that because it's what I want to do. And we'll say that a lot when we beg out of a commitment or something. Oh, this came up, I need to do this. No, I'm making a conscious choice to do this thing instead of this other thing. We are always making a choice about which thing we're going to do. There's nothing that we have to do. I could get in my car right now and drive to Mexico and not show up to my job, not take care of the kids. I could just leave. I can do that. That is an option. There's nothing stopping me from just leaving. We can all do whatever we want to do, but we make a choice. So if you're an owner, you're always in control of your actions and you just recognize that. And the reality is, you're never going to be all owner all the time. It's a spectrum. You're going to be somewhere on that spectrum, but the idea is, as you make victim type choices, like I'll notice that I'm writing in an email, I need to do such and such. And I'll say, no, I don't need to do that. I have decided that I will do this. I intend to do this or something else. Take control of the words you use. Take control of the choices that you make in life. Nothing is forcing you to do the things that you do. You don't have to go to work. You choose to go to work because those are you want to earn the income, right? You don't want to suffer the consequences of not going, but that's a conscious choice that you make. You don't have to go. You go because you want the reward of going, which is in most cases a monetary reward, because you don't need the money. You want to have the money in order to pay your bills. You don't have to pay your bills. You are choosing to pay your bills. You intend to pay your bills because you want to be able to stay in your house, for example, right? We make these choices so that we can continue to do the things we want to do, but none of them are mandatory. There's no such thing as mandatory in life. You're a free agent. You can do whatever you want to do, despite what society may tell you. The next one we'll talk about is commitment. So this is, I made a choice or a decision to do blank. If you're an owner, that's the way you talk about commitments. I made a choice. I made a decision to do whatever. I made a decision to go to the workshop today. Or as a victim, you'll ask myself, do I feel like going to this workshop? Do I feel like it? So if we're always thinking about how we feel about doing things, we'll very quickly find out that we don't feel like doing anything, usually. This is why people that want to have a new workout, regime, they will say, do I feel like doing that today? No, I don't. I'm going to push it off till tomorrow. So as a victim, you're always thinking about, what are my feelings? I'm a victim to my feelings, right? But no, we make a conscious decision about the things we want to do, and we do them despite how we feel about them. We shouldn't care about our feelings. We just need to do what we know we should do. And there I am saying should, right? We should do the things that we committed to do rather than relying on our feelings, which brings me back to the 5-second rule, because that is exactly what happens. When we think about something that we feel that we should do from our gut, that we're inspired to do by our heart, by our gut, right? We sometimes get trapped in this idea of, how do I feel about it? I don't really feel like doing it, so I probably won't, right? But instead we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, engage your conscious mind on that activity and go and do it, take action and move forward. So avoid, how do I feel about this? Instead say, I made a choice to do this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep my commitment. And usually we have a pretty easy time keeping commitments we make to other people because that reflects on us. Some people even have trouble with that, but almost everyone has trouble with keeping commitments to themselves because there's no one to hold you accountable. It's just you and yourself, me, myself, and I, right? And if you break a commitment to yourself, no one knows about it except for you, and it's a lot easier to take. So the very last way of looking at owner versus victim is, as an owner, you always say, what can I do in any given situation? And as a victim, you say, who can I blame? Right? So anyone that's complaining about a situation, they are trying to blame someone else. And whenever we are an owner, we say, what can I do? How can I influence the situation to reach the outcome that I want it to reach? So in my second marriage, I blamed a lot of things on my ex-wife. And I didn't take responsibility for my part of all those problems. A lot of these were financial problems. So I just blamed it on her. It was all a blame game. And only later on did I realize, after reading Leadership and Self-Deception, that I had this image of myself as a responsible adult who doesn't, spend more money than he makes. And the reality was I was falling right into that trap as well. I was not making good choices then. I was not playing the role I needed to play. And what can I do? I could have done a lot of things to change that situation, but I didn't. I just played the blame game the entire time. And it was a really big issue for our marriage. A lot of people this comes up a lot at work for a lot of people in their job. They like to blame the organization, blame their boss, blame their coworkers, and you have to take responsibility. If you don't like the way something is happening, take it to your boss, explain why you don't like it and what they can do to change it. Make a presentation, an effective presentation. And if they don't agree with your point of view, all that means is that you were not effective in making your point. So don't blame them, blame yourself, right? Or don't blame anybody. Just say, okay, that wasn't effective. So what can I do next to either gain more influence or make a better presentation of the situation, explain myself better? Or maybe you change your mind about it. Maybe you get some more information that changes your mind. But whatever you do, always think about how you can take action to change the situation rather than blaming anybody else, circumstances outside your control, right? You are always responsible for what happens. You're always able to change the situation, to take control. You have the power to do that. So as you go through your day, I encourage you to think about whether you're thinking in terms of being a victim or being an owner. Whenever you can, shift towards that owner point of view.